Hey, Jennifer.
Hello.
How's today going?
Um, Today's okay, but how am I doing? I'm kind of fucking giddy because of what we're going to talk about today.
I know. It's like you've
I've
been
been
just
waiting.
cannot wait to get to this topic of conversation. Somebody please talk to me about
I know, I know.
it. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. But first, I have to know what the rest of your shirt says because all I
Oh,
can see is the very top
I
line.
know. I'm kind of bummed that my camera, the position I have to be in, I can't really show what my cool
All
new
your
shirts
cool
are. And I
shirts.
finally got all my cool new shirts. So it says, if you think you love freedom, but you don't care if it applies to everyone, what you actually love is privilege.
Ah, very good. Very
Yes,
good.
I got my order from Teacher's Gram or Teacher Grams. I'm not sure where the S goes in there. There is an S somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so excited to show off my cool new
I
t-shirts that
know.
proclaim my values.
It makes you wonder, like, if it weren't for all of this activism and like organizing work, what would our wardrobes look like, right?
I know. I told my husband, I need new t-shirts. He's like, you said that before the election and you bought new t-shirts. I'm like, yeah, but they all say Kamala Harris on them. And I'm not ashamed to wear them, but they're just not relevant anymore.
Right, right. You have to keep your wardrobe relevant
Yes.
to the times. I know.
Yeah.
I know. I had to dedicate like half of a drawer to t-shirts, and I wonder what that half a drawer would be like if Kamala Harris
Hmm.
had one.
Yeah.
Probably be some t-shirts, but not as many
Yeah.
t-shirts. Well, that
Yep.
one's cool. I can't wait to see the others. Well, to get onto this juicy topic, because I know you're dying to dish about it. So how about that primary election over there in New York City?
Wow is kind of what I'm saying. I mean, on the one hand, I'm not surprised. On the other hand, I am surprised. There's two sides of me. The side of me that was like, nothing's ever gonna change. Everybody's, scared of a democratic socialist, and someone like him can't win a primary like that. Like that part of me is amazed at
Yeah,
what happened.
yeah,
But then there's the other side of me that you and I have had this conversation a million times. We need to change. We need to be more progressive. We need to
yeah,
be talking about how the rich are, getting richer and taking over this country, like taking over our own politics. And the regular person doesn't have the voice that we used to have, or maybe we never did. I don't know. But the point is, we're sick of it.
yeah.
We're all
And
sick of it. And
yeah,
it's time to do something.
totally. And not like shy away from those social issues, right? For like the
Mhm.
sake of some kind of strategy that we think might be the right thing. I mean, he's,
Yeah.
the winner is a huge example of all of
Yeah.
those things. And it was
Mm-hmm.
cool to see it all go down. I know that we have, several chat groups that we're in, and one in particular that really kind of zeroes in on whatever obscure or not so obscure election or special election is going on of the day.
Yeah.
And as that all the results were coming in, we were all pretty amazed
Yeah.
together about what we were seeing, and especially like, kind of pulling back from the individual, like winners and losers of that primary, and really thinking about like just the like philosophical position, right? That kind of the results make you think about, and this idea that there's like, within the Democratic Party, like an old guard and a new guard,
Mm-hmm.
and then just to see like the reaction within the party across, all sort of levels as the news started to spread. How did
Yeah.
you feel about all of that?
Um, I don't know. That was a lot. Um, it was
All of which.
it was yeah, so it's like we were in our little chat group, and it was like watching the polls roll in or watching the results roll in, and this district, and for those of you who may, obviously most of you that are watching us know that we are from Michigan. We are not from New York. So who wins that mayoral race has nothing to do with us, essentially. We're talking about the politics of where we live. um, but we do watch races that that seemingly would have nothing to do with us. But this was a big one because it's a primary. So it's essentially Democrats making a decision about the direction that the Democratic Party needs to go in. And you had sort of this charismatic, of the people out there on the streets talking to people, young man who is talking about things we need to talk about, but also not shying away from the things that people say we shouldn't talk about. And just being a real relatable person, not talking like a politician, not talking like an elite, even though I'm sure he's highly educated, and just relating to people on their everyday basic needs. And then on the other side of that, you've got Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah. Yeah.
And part of me is mad that Mamdani didn't win more, because Cuomo is the antithesis of everything I want for this party. I am so done with that. Exactly. So yeah, on the one hand, I was really happy that, there was this referendum. And I'm also really excited to see, after they do all the rank choice, what Mamdani ends up with.
Yeah, totally. And in the middle of all that excitement, right, to see kind of the old guard Democratic Party, the Nancy Pelosi's, the
and
Governor Hochul's, all of those folks, not come out and be voraciously supportive of what happened, just spoke volumes, I thought.
Oh yeah. And I get the political fears of embracing the term democratic socialist. I understand that has become a boogeyman. Socialism, communism, anything that is not capitalism has become a boogeyman that certain portions of our electorate just automatically make assumptions. And they're generally wrong. I'm still a Democrat. I do not consider myself a democratic socialist. I can see but they're still talking about the things that I care about. So there's no reason that those things like a living wage and, strong unions and, making sure people have safe working conditions and just all of these very basic things, there's no reason that those have to be democratic socialist policies. Mm-hmm. Those should be democratic policies. And we can embrace that. And yeah, I'm really disgusted with a lot of the Democratic leadership that they're scared of their own shadow. They're holding on to power with the tips of their fingernails because they're losing it. They've got nothing. They've got nothing. They have no power in Washington. And they're holding on so tight to this old thing that is done. It is time to move on. And you have a choice. You can either get on board and help shape the new thing, or you can keep holding on to the old thing and we're screwed, because we can't win without all of us, and the old thing is not going to win.
Absolutely. I know. It's first of all, on the Democratic Socialist side of things, I just really don't care about the labels. Yeah. I do not care about the labels. When I was running for office, I was called a socialist and a communist at the same time. Now, those two definitions are diametrically opposed to each other. You can't actually be both, but in the same day, I would be called both. And people don't understand what those definitions are and those labels are. And so we have to stop being afraid of words and pulling words and picking the right words that the people, 50% plus one of the people find agreeable, and start, like we've said in a couple of other podcasts, creating a vision for a future you want, and not being overeducated idiots about it, right? Creating a vision that you want, moving people forward to that vision let them put whatever label on it that they want, but talk from those places of
Mm-hmm.
integrity and authenticity. I think I've talked about my best friend's father before, but he was uh, blue collar, down to earth carpenter, like for his whole life. And when we were in college, we would go visit him and his wife and my friend, and we would go stay. They lived kind of close to Houghton Lake, and we would sit around the table just talking all of our college stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
he was probably one of the smartest people I've ever met before. And he would just look at us, just sort of like kind of shake his head and just be like, "You're a bunch of overeducated idiots." So with the Democratic Party and people and leaders in it, I feel like they're like navel gazing and talking about this word and that word and whatever, and like
Mm-hmm.
pulling this and only doing the things that are like saying the words that are pulled the best. I feel like they're
Test,
being
test, test.
overeducated
Yeah.
idiots, and like,
Yeah.
let's stop doing that. You know, we have examples now of younger, charismatic, and yet very approachable and personable leaders coming out and, you know, saying just what matters, not what polls best.
Yeah.
And that part made me so excited and made me just really like disappointed, like not surprised but still disappointed in the reaction from the old guard folks, that this is just different and it's just like not gonna pull right, or like whatever the reason
I
behind their
know. I
reaction is.
know. And that's like, so one thing I heard from focus groups, not that I conducted focus groups, that I listened to other focus groups that were conducted by professionals, et cetera, that kind of thing. And it was just kind of the conclusion that came out of that a lot was that it was almost like Kamala Harris was saying nothing. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, some of the
Mm-hmm.
stuff she said spoke to me because I'm an overeducated idiot.
Mm-hmm.
But like
Yeah.
it's all poll tested and everything's
Yep.
perfect, and don't stray from this message, and you get to just your everyday average person and they're like, I have no freaking clue what she's
Right.
talking about. What's an opportunity economy? What the
Yeah.
fuck is that? Like, to be honest, I did
Right.
not know what an opportunity economy was, but I'm like, I gotta cheer her on, so let's
Yeah.
go.
Let's
But
do
yeah,
that.
it's just this whole idea of like, they took the idea of meeting people where they are to be, we have to be where they're at on the issues. You do not have to be where they're at on the issues, and you do not have to poll test everything until the message is meaningless. Meeting people where there are, or where they are, is sort of like, okay, do that, but you have to have a plan to get them where you want them to go. If all you're doing is meeting them where they are, then you're not doing anything. You have to have a vision, a plan. And Mamdani for sure as hell has a vision and a
Yeah.
plan for where he wants to take them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't necessarily agree with every piece of that vision and plan. And as a former New Yorker, like I'm paying attention to those kinds of things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's there and like the pieces are there and the foundation is there that I just really appreciate. And when I see this sort of old guard like negative reaction to literally this new kind of wave that energized the young voters like we've never seen before in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the big surprise. Like the rest of
Yeah.
it was like pretty predictable. The younger voters, the like, 30 and under, like that
Yeah.
was a whoa. That was like the biggest voting block essentially of this election. And
Mm-hmm.
we've never seen anything like that. And so when I kind of like the dark side to me of the reaction of the old guard Democrats is this idea that they're actually acting like at the behest of their funders, essentially, right? So they
Yeah.
got word that they're funders, they're whoever writes those big checks. Like Democrats are susceptible to all of that, like pay as you play politics, and
Mm-hmm.
big business checks and all of those things. And I think that there's a lot of big business very worried about Mondavi and his like way of thinking about how economies should work and how people should be prioritized. And so there's no proof that that's why this like less than, excited reaction came from the old guard Democrats, but it's probably there. It's probably there,
Yeah,
some kind of
for
influence
sure.
of those big businesses. And like that makes me even more want to just like get behind, what's going on, because I think that is the insidious nature of politics right now.
Yeah, we for sure talked about needing to get corporate money and big money out of politics because it's corruption. And it's technically legal corruption right
Yeah.
now, but it is not helping our politics. And I think about Bernie Sanders, in my opinion, said it best to kind of sum up this young people motion or movement is that like you've been saying for months, how do we get young people involved? And we get young people involved, and you're like, oh no, not like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So Democratic leaders
Exactly.
take note. This is what is going to work. So either get on board or get the fuck out of the way. I'm sorry.
I
I'm never going to get a
know.
job in politics this way, but man, I'm just so frustrated.
So what do you think that means for Midland? What does that mean for anyone listening and thinking about like taking this all in and applying it to their local organizing and local activism?
Well, for one thing, I think if you look at the numbers of who voted in this primary and who voted for whom, if that didn't really change a lot except for this youth vote, I think that's something we really got to look at.
Yeah.
That's something we also need to energize. It might not be as big a voting block in Midland as we would like because we don't have it's not a big college town. It does have a college, but it's not a huge college town. Obviously, there's young people, but it's a family-oriented community. So you've got young people like my children move out, and then people generally come back when they want to have kids. But even still, that's still a lot of people in their 30s. So yeah, I think we need to be looking at some of these younger people, which we've been trying to do. It's not as easy because you get a lot of people our age, which we're not that old, everybody, but we're
I
definitely
feel
not
so
in our
old lately
30s.
though.
And so a lot of it is, it kind of gives us the what's the Steve Buscemi uh meme where it's like, what you doing, fellow young people? And it's, and obviously he is not. So yeah, we're Steve Buscemi in this
Yeah.
meme. But also I think, and this is something, economic issues. We've all talked about how that needs to be focused on. Not necessarily at the expense of other things.
Yes.
We've also talked about that.
Yes. Yes.
But people's bottom line. We got to talk about people's bottom line and how, not just how people are doing and but like big, bold moves and changes. If you're talking about tiny little incremental things, you lost people. And I get that people don't want to overpromise and then get in office and not be able to do it. I get that. And I'm not asking people to do that. But maybe we need people with more vision in office so we can get big, bold things done.
Yeah. 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 And I think, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but this is just emphasizing the point, right? There's something also about like it's like the learning is there is a voting block and it's young people and they're capable of being energized to vote, right? To me, that's the big aha. Like I think before this, there's always been the like, well, young people just don't vote, as if like we're not going to spend time like trying to energize them. And there are ways, right, to do that, and to do that in ways that where we don't lose our integrity and our values, right?
Yeah.
Like they're all the same, like we're all in the same team. The other thing that I think about, and we've talked about this before, is this is like these different approaches to engaging these different voters and different kind of community members to get more involved. And not every approach is going to hit everybody the same.
Yes.
And so like people need to be comfortable with some level of discomfort with various tactics that happen that leaders and organizers will try out in order to like speak to different voting groups and
Mhm.
voting blocks, including young people.
Yeah.
And so do you remember the Super Bowl halftime show with Kendrick Lamar
Oh yeah, yeah.
recently? Yeah.
Oh,
It
who
makes
could
me
forget that?
yeah, so it was amazing, but it makes me think of that because the response after like the day after the Super Bowl from like a lot of like the my friends and social media stuff, which is skews my age and older, was like,
Mhm.
what was that about? I don't really like rap. I couldn't hear what was going on. Like, what was that? What were those weird costumes about? Like, I don't get it. Like, bring back Prince or whatever.
Yeah.
And when I hear my kids who are firmly Gen Z, they're like, oh my gosh, that was amazing. I can't believe he did this. They totally getting like the
Yeah.
symbolism right away and all the things. And my response to my friends and older was like, it just wasn't for you. Like,
And that's okay.
and I don't mean that as like rude, right? I don't mean
Nope.
that as like, you know, get with it. I mean, it's okay that not everything's for you, especially if you're a cisgender, straight, white, 40 something year old. Like,
Mhm.
so much is for us. Like,
Oh yeah.
everything is for us. And it's okay if things are not for us in order
Mhm.
to like for the sake of art, for the sake of culture, for the sake of engaging, future generations and current voters. It's okay that it's not for you and it makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. The next thing will be for you. Like, probably,
Probably.
like,
Yeah.
just be okay with that
Well,
discomfort. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that is for sure. I'm reading a book on craftivism, and that is one of the things that
Yeah.
she says is get comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not really sure what craftivism is. Is that like doing crafts while you're doing
it's like
activism?
incorporating. We actually
Oh,
have done
excuse. Yeah.
craftivism,
Yeah. Yeah. I remember.
especially like specifically, and like she's somebody I want to see if we can get on the pod, but like the mask project was craftivism because we did something good, we saw a need in our community, we created, and yeah, that's part of craftivism. So
Yeah.
more on
And
that later.
the mask project, by the way, was when I was getting ready to kind of heating up the campaign for my 2020 campaign for the state house. And right then COVID happened and we had all of these volunteers like starting to like agitate and be ready to be engaged. And we switched all of those volunteers to making masks. It was
Yep.
that time when those PPEs were hard to come by, and we were like we engaged people who knew how to sew and had sewing machines. We had people who had sewing machines who didn't know how to sew lend their sewing machines to other
Mm-hmm.
people. We had people with no business sewing anything, but they could cut squares, and so that's
Yeah.
what they did. We had people doing picking up material. We gathered material from all over the community. We didn't buy a single shred of material, I don't think, because people just had
Well,
it.
I did,
Most other
but
people did, yeah. Yeah.
because I wanted to make like some cool like Marvel ones or
Right, right, right,
Harry
right, right.
Potter or whatever.
Right.
So
But that gets me so excited because like not everybody's going to get into that, right? But like it
yeah.
was different and it engaged people in ways that um I can think of 3 or 4 people that come to mind that were not as engaged before that got
Mm-hmm.
involved in the mask stuff and are
Yeah.
now and continue to be 5 years later more engaged in
Oh
activism and
yeah.
political like organizing and all the things for sure. And so that is the thing that's like not everyone's comfortable with that. Like that's totally fine. And just let the people who are like do it and understand and trust like your local leaders to be thinking about how to
Mm-hmm.
leverage these different ways of engagement.
Because I
Yeah.
for sure remember people saying, "Is this really the best use of our time right now?"
Right.
And I don't, I can't think of who it was, but I for sure remember people in Facebook groups or something being like, "I don't know, is this a good use of our time?" Yes, it's a fucking good use of our
Yeah.
time. What else are you going to do right now?
Right.
You can't knock on doors.
Exactly. We had all these people geared up to knock on doors in 2020, just ready because they had done it in 2018. And
Mm-hmm.
um And obviously you can't knock on doors when you're in the middle of a pandemic. And so finding ways to like shift that energy is really important. And you did activism last election cycle because we had some, I'm sorry, craftivism last election cycle because you had some craft nights that really helped to
Yeah.
kind of like do that.
And
And we got more people in that way.
yes, and that
Yeah.
brought people in that became full-time volunteers for other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's different ways to do that. And it's understanding like those pockets and engaging them, but also like convincing your kind of other folks that if that's not for them, it's okay. They don't have
Yeah.
to resonate with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they, also should not like badmouth the things that they don't resonate
Yeah.
with, right? And
No, for
trust
sure.
trust leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to go too much into that again, but that was one thing that I kept thinking of is like the bad mouthing about this thing we're doing that brought out 2,000 people that got people energized and excited. You're taking away from it when you could have been adding to it.
Exactly.
Which
Yeah.
brings me back to Mamdani. Like that's what these establishment types are doing is bringing down the excitement, bringing down the momentum, putting a damper on what's going on when they could be like, okay, I don't agree with everything that he says and does, but hey, he's done something. And I will say, Amanda Littman, who's with Run for Something, I believe she said since last Tuesday, and this was, I think it was a few days afterward, like the few days afterwards, she said that they had like 1,500 people across the country say they wanted to run for office. And then a few days
Oh my
later,
gosh.
there was 3,000. So
Wow.
he is not only energizing people
Yeah.
to vote for
That's so
him
good.
in New York, he is energizing people across the country to want to vote for progressive candidates and motivating people to stand up and be a progressive candidate.
And there's no doubt that I've heard that Mandavi will be the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York. So like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing that you don't jump full-throatedly on board with this person? He is literally going to be like, there is a general election that we have to win the mayoral office in the city of New York. We have to win it, and it will be against likely a Republican or maybe an independent. Who knows? I know that Cuomo is potentially running for as an independent along with current Mayor Adams. But
So,
what are
but
you
that's what
doing?
they're doing. They're banking on, okay, so there's going to be a Republican. That's already, that primary is done. I don't remember their name because they're practically inconsequential in New York.
Yeah.
There's the independent, Eric Adams, who is the current Democratic mayor of New York. He's going to run as an independent. And then you've got Mamdani, who's going to be the Democratic candidate. And then you've got potentially Cuomo, who will run as an independent. He started his own political party so that he could do that. And this is what they're doing. The establishment is like, well, let's see what Cuomo does. Maybe we can get behind him. You're going to fuck us all.
Yes, exactly.
That's what they're going to do. For a guy who lied about deaths during COVID, senior citizen deaths at nursing homes, who had one of the worst pandemic responses. Like we thought he was doing well, but then when we actually looked at the numbers, it wasn't so good. Who has been credibly accused by 11 women of sexual harassment, who wanted their gynecological records so that he could dispute their sexual harassment claims.
Oh my
god! Like, and that's just like
I didn't hear that, but that's
as a bully.
That's
known as a bully.
Yeah, from an HR perspective, right? Like that's what the part that I know is like the amount of like hostile work environment like tales that you hear from folks who've had to work with this guy, and that's like that guy lost in this primary process, but you're going to go ahead and like back him or tacitly back him by not being super supportive of the winner for whatever reason. And like in the vacuum of like a credible reason for that, we filled in with the worst possible reasons, which probably have to do with power and money on the Democratic Party side. So it's also frustrating. And we're watching it really closely and also just paying attention, right, to how it plays out locally.
Mhm.
So I'm sure we could dish about this all day. I know that we've got some plans to bring in some other folks to join us in the future, probably
Yeah.
kind of touch on this whole conversation a bit. But before we go, I have a question that I
Okay.
can I can ask, unless you have one.
I did, but I forgot it. So I need to write it down and
Okay,
put a
okay.
sticky note on
Yeah, you
the
need a sticky. You
computer.
totally need a sticky.
Yeah.
So my question is, if you could share with me, uh, and everyone else, a pet peeve of yours that you like hold on to so tightly that most people will find irrational. Pet peeve of
Um,
yours.
the problem is I have so many pet peeves that
Okay, it doesn't
are
have to be the top one,
irrational.
just one, the one that you want to share.
um, I don't know. I just so the other day when we were out helping our friend purchase a wedding dress.
Uh-huh.
And her soon to be sister-in-law, and this I'm not complaining about her, just so everybody knows. I have the same pet peeve she has, is what I'm saying. We threw all of our menus into a stack,
Uh-huh.
and she like organized them all so they were all the same way and they were all nice and neat on the edges. I would have done the same thing. I and don't even look at my desk area right now. It is an absolute disaster, and it probably is causing me mental strife. But I like everything to be in nice, neat little things. Doesn't need to be a mess. So even like putting the dishes on the counter, my kids will just like throw it. Like there's a stack of plates right here. You could put the plate on the plate. Like that is a thing we can do.
Don't put the plate next to the plate. Put the plate
Yeah.
on the plate.
Yeah.
That's funny. I know what you mean by mental health, though. Like, I'm not to that extent. I'm not to the, restaurant menu extent of neat and orderly. But,
Yeah.
like, I know that my mental health is better when there's less clutter and chaos
Oh yeah.
that my eyes can land on. If I can look
Yeah.
around a room and, like, land in lots of places of neatness and order, then I
Mm-hmm.
can relax a lot better. If I can't and I look around the room and I'm like chaos, chaos, clutter, clutter, I can't relax. Like
Yeah.
my mental
Me
health
too.
is affected by the state of the clutter in my house for
Mm-hmm.
sure. So I appreciate that. Although again, not to the restaurant menu level.
So is there another one for you? I mean, you're
I
just
do, yeah,
agreeing
I
with
have
me.
one. So, okay, this one's totally rational, but I cannot stand the term fur baby. I cannot stand that term. I cannot stand it. They are not your babies. They're your pets. They're
I
not
think
babies.
baby.
Ah, ugh. Infantilizing pets, just like, and also like in the same vein, when like someone will talk like to their pet and about like their spouse and be like, well, daddy won't be home until whatever. Like, that's not your daddy. This is a dog. Like, this is an
If
animal. I cannot stand that. I just can.
if
I mean, like, when I hear people say that term or like write about their fur babies and social media, I
and it's super
just,
cringy.
ugh, ugh,
If I said to my cat, Daddy will be home soon,
ugh.
my husband would divorce me. He was like, I am not that cat's daddy. Absolutely not.
I can totally hear Craig's voice when you're saying that. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh, I don't know why. I didn't know it's irrational. It's like I have this like I mean, it's one thing to not like that, but like my not like is like a level 9 when I hear that term, and it's
But
totally there's no reason for me
yeah,
to spend that kind of like hate energy
it's
on the
not my
term for
favorite
baby.
thing, but my energy is lower on that one. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Alrighty. Well, we have some exciting additional podcasts planned coming up, so make sure that you're following along, and we'll see you next time. Good to see you,
All right.
Jennifer. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.